Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening to this. Good day to you. We are in week 6, on the precipice of the halfway mark of the regular season. Bit of a strange week, back down to a bit of low scoring again this week. Other things to note, big LFC dominance this week. 4 wins from their 4 contenders. Only Kiddle was the only one to give an L over to the KFC. So once again, the LFC really showing its dominance here with 4 wins to 1. It's just a dogfight, absolute dogfight for that championship. And that's why the man first on my list cannot relax, but we cannot hold him out of the top spot any longer. You got to give the man props. It's the Rook. 6 short weeks and the Rook catapults himself to the top of the rankings. Now, why is this? Well, one, it's because the other teams are a bit of a mishmash. Gotta say, it's hard to pick. There's no real strong contenders coming to the fore. No squad that I look at and think that is the best squad in this division. He's just winning games. The Rook is just picking up wins, and he picked up another big one this week in the Bro Bowl, our first ever Bro Bowl, and he goes and beats Lloyd. You could say this is his first lucky win of the season. Well, it's certainly the first time that he's finished in outside the top 5 scores. So I think he had the 6th best score of the week. So, you know, all being fair, would have deserved an L. But all his other weeks have been in the top 5, and it was a bit of a drossy first Bro Bowl, 125 to 113. It wasn't helped by the fact that both teams picked up. I mean, Amari Cooper, I think they both picked up a donut pretty much, one from Amari Cooper and one from Disley, which is always going to keep your scoring down. Once again, star man was Austin Hooper. So I finally did some research. I was like, where did he get this bloody Austin Hooper from? The number 1 tight end in the game. Well, it turns out he didn't draft Austin Hooper. He drafted Jimmy Graham. And after a couple of weeks, when he realised that Jimmy Graham was not the answer, he turned to David Njoku. Then, 1 week later, David Njoku picks up a season-ending, or certainly an injury that sent him to IR. And he goes and picks up Austin Hooper off free agency in week 3. So kind of lucked into it somewhat, but it certainly is the strongest contender for waiver pickup of the season so far. And it was him who led the team in scoring once again. He outscored Mahomes, he outscored Dak in what was kind of even scoring across the board. He had no guys really go off, but it was enough to get him the win. But as I said, even at 5-1, top of the rankings now, top dog. And it's one thing becoming the top dog, and it's another thing staying there. And like I said, he's got a pack of wannabe top dogs following him in the LFC. 3 teams just waiting, just 1 game behind him at 4-2. Any slip-ups and he's going to lose that top spot in the LFC. And like I said, the big games keep on coming. He's just won the Bro Bowl, game of the week. You think, oh, okay, right, what next? Well, he's in the game of the week again next week. And this time it's champ versus challenger. He takes on the Toy Boys, reigning champs. And we need to see, is this guy a contender or is he a pretender? Kim Jong-un going up against the reigning champ. So we look forward to that one. Let's see who's number 2 in the rankings. Number 2 on our list, and kind of lucky to move back up in the list here. Again, he's riding his double championship, but I'm going to go and put Toy Boys in here at 2. But I'm not a whole lot happy about it. Them actually moving up a spot because they did pick up the win and they do have those 2 rings, and champ versus challenger next week is a nice little narrative, having them the top 2 in the rankings. But I've got a lot to say about this team at the moment. And we want to talk about lucky wins. This was the luckiest win of the week. 119 points from the Toy Boys, beating out Kittle with 106. Yeah, only Kittle, I guess you don't need to score that many, but yeah, 119 would have lost a lot of games this week. Jared Goff is struggling. He's struggling, and that is causing his receivers to struggle. So it's having double the effect on the Toy Boys. And they're just riding the hot hand of Deshaun Watson at the moment. He is saving them at the moment. Julio and DeAndre are just putting in 10s. Not what you're really expecting from them. And the more I just look at this team, I think out of those top 7, this is the roster with the most problems. I think since they've lost Eckler, well, basically, when I say lost Eckler, I mean he's lost the starting job to Melvin Gordon. And since that happened, he's just so weak at RB. I mean, yeah, Josh Jacobs went on a bye this week, but if you're starting Royce Freeman and Austin Eckler are 2 backup running backs, but they're not backups for the Toy Boys. They're starting. And when I look at his bench, I was like, why is he still holding on to Darrell Williams? I mean, really? He's a 3rd choice, and Damian Williams is back now. So why is he still holding on? I don't notice. This is his plan. If you look down his list, he's got Madison, who's Dalvin Cook's backup. He's got Henderson, the rookie for the Rams, who's behind, obviously, Gurley and possibly even behind Malcolm Brown as well. And he's got Darrell Williams, who's behind Damian Williams, and possibly even Shady McCoy as well. But he's kind of holding these kind of handcuffs. I think he's had Pollard in at one point as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I think his only idea or only plan to try and get hold of an RB1 is just grab the handcuffs and hope for an injury, which, other than being a bit of a disgusting strategy, because it's kind of wishing injury on the starters for it to work, I don't think it's proactive enough in trying to find an RB. I mean, I think he's got to go out there and make a trade. And he's done it this week for his tight end. There was an issue there, and he made a trade with the Pingers. Let me just get the details of that up. So yeah, it was Darren Waller coming from the Raiders, from the Pingers to the Toy Boys, and he gave up Jacoby Brissett. So just looking at it from the 4th trade between the Toy Boys and the Pingers historically, moves them up to joint 2nd in most frequent trading partnerships. Little stat. It's an interesting one because I'll cover the Pingers side a bit later, but he needed to do it. Their tight end is very thin. So he's gone out there and found Waller, and yeah, is Waller going to continue this production? He's certainly been doing well so far, but you know, he's not a household name, that's for sure, and his production is not guaranteed over the rest of the season, that is for sure. And he's had to go and give up a QB, which obviously now leaves him with 2 on the roster. So I guess that was a big vote of confidence to Jared Goff, because the week before, it was Brissett and Deshaun starting. By having to trade away Brissett, he's now only got Goff. He's going to have to keep on playing Goff unless he can pick someone up off the waivers. So he's had to give up, yeah, a good option he had there in Brissett. Like I think he's had to give up a lot to go and get this tight end. So he's going to really rely on him keeping his early season production going. But like I said, this team is has got no running backs. They've got no running backs. So, and they've got an issue at QB with Goff. And, you know, Waller's not the answer at tight end. So really they've only got a couple of good receivers and a bunch of handcuffs. So I really do think this is, out of that top 7, if I was going take away the team names, take away the rings, if I was just looking purely on paper, the top 7 rosters, this one is the weakest, for show. Okay, down to number 3. Falling down from the top spot is the Saggy Punts. Now, they took the L this week against the Pingers, 137 to 140. 137 was... yeah, it was the 3rd highest score of the week, so it just shows you what a low-scoring week it was. And yeah, the Punts can count themselves a bit unfortunate to take the L then in this scenario. But they did take the L, and they were in big trading action this week with the big blockbuster trade. They're always in the blockbusters with Bedell's, and it saw them give up post 46 burger Will Fuller, straight on the back of a 46 burger. He gives up Will Fuller, and he gives up Philip Lindsay, the recently acquired Philip Lindsay, and he acquires Chris Carson and Hollywood Marquise Brown. Now, this is a real thinker of a trade. I've been tossing and turning on it a bit, because on the one hand, you've got to praise the balls of Thomas Hedge here, and this is a man who knows how to sell high. It's a difficult skill, because you look at Bedell's. Do they wish they'd traded away Sammy Watkins after that week 1 performance? Of course they do. But to actually do that, to look into the face of a player and think, you are never going to score higher than this score again, and therefore I'm going to trade you away when your value is the highest. It's tough. I mean, I'm trying to even think of a time I've actually managed to pull it off. But Tom Hedge did it in this scenario. He went and got rid of Will Fuller right on the back of that score. So got to praise his balls first and foremost. Secondly, he had the whole league kind of saying, like, you got to start Fuller. There was a lot of discussion over his starting choices at wide receiver this week. And I'm going to kind of continue that discussion, giving with one hand and taking away with the other. I mean, it started off with the bad decision of starting Josh Gordon. Obviously, I don't want to hindsight it too much. He did pick up an injury, but I just think he had so many good options this week that I don't think Gordon really, if you look at his scores this season, should have come into the conversation. Likewise, Golden Tate. While Golden Tate did score 19 points on the bench, he was literally the only healthy pass catcher of any note for the Giants, and they were likely going to be behind. So it was pretty likely he was going to get a lot of balls thrown his way. Again, with the options they had, I don't think you could just throw him in 1 week back, two weeks back after his suspension, after he did nothing his first week back. So I'm not going to have a pop it in for that one. Tyreek Hill, obviously you've got to throw him in. Scary Terry McLaurin, that was a great play. Absolute great play from Hedge. Doesn't listen to anyone else, gets rid of Fuller, chucks McLaurin in, and he turns in 24 points. So, got to give him credit for that. But, Stefon Diggs puts up a 40 burger on the bench, costs him the game not selecting Diggs, and against that Philly secondary, that secondary has looked horrendous this season. I think if you're not going to play Diggs in that game, when are you going to play him? You've drafted him high. Obviously, he's been disappointing so far, but the Vikes started getting the pass going the week before, again, against, I think it was against the Falcons, so again, against the poor pass D, suddenly Thielen pops one. And again, I think Philly pass D, I think that was a play he missed it. So yeah, he's just so stacked at receiver. It is difficult. Again, kind of makes the acquisition of Hollywood Brown. I'm not really sure. It doesn't really do anything in the trade. It's a nothing for me. So really, you're talking Carson for Lindsay and Fuller. I'll get on to Bedell's side, but I can see what Hedge is doing here. Hedge is a strong side, and he wants to acquire the best pieces possible. And if he has to give up 2 lesser pieces to get a top piece, he'll do that. So I do kind of like this side from Hedge's point of view. I think Carson is going to improve in the second half of the season. I think just through workload, you look at it and you think, Carson's an every week play. You stick him in the lineup, doesn't really matter the matchup. He's going to get carries. I think he's basically a matchup-proof start. Would you start Lindsay if he had a really bad matchup? Maybe not. Would you start Fuller if he had a really bad matchup? Almost, yeah, pretty much definitely not if you had other good options like Hedge does. It's Devontae Adams still to come back into those receiving options as well. So I see what Hedge has done, and I like the trade, but he's got the best pieces. Picked up Chris Carson. That is an every week starter at RB that I think is going to go from strength to strength. So good trade again from Hedge. Big balls in the trade, but big error this week, not picking Diggs, has cost him top spot in the rankings and cost him this matchup to the Pingers. He falls to 3-3, and historically these two now move to 9-9 between Hedge and Joe OB. Talking of Joe OB, he is the GM of the 4th in the rankings Pingers, leapfrogging up to 4th in the rankings following a very nice week, 147 and a big time win over the Punts. You can't put it any other way. This was a big game, 2 sides with identical records going in. Is that right? Yeah, identical records going in, both at 3-2. Pingers now put themselves a game up on Tom Hedge in a game that, yeah, they were probably expected to lose. Looking down their list of scores, it was pretty consistent throughout the squad. Panthers D putting in a nice score for him, and David Johnson against his old team putting in a big score of 25. So that won't make Joe feel pretty good on the back of their the trade with the Punts most recently. Obviously, Josh Gordon putting up a stinker against him is great as well. And Golladay picked up 14 points. So, yeah, it does look like Hedge has come out... Joe OB's come out of that trade pretty well. Although his old mate Russell Wilson did put up a 28 on him. But he bought in Case Keenum and he picked up 15, which is serviceable. We talked about how he had a bit of a disaster scenario at QB going into this week, and he remedied it by picking up Case Keenum, who had a decent day, and he remedied it even further with this trade with the Toy Boys, which is the one I really want to get onto. And probably the real reason that I've popped the Pingers up here is I think it's a really great trade for them. I told you it's a kind of okay trade for the Toy Boys, but it's a perfect trade for the Pingers because they basically gave up nothing. They have Evan Ingram, who is their number 1 tight end, will always be their number 1 tight end, no matter what Waller does, just on name value and production through the season so far, opportunities, etc. So they've got this second tight end. It's difficult when you have a second tight end because if you see that if they're a top 10 tight ends, you don't just want to drop them on the wire because someone's going to pick them up for nothing, and you've just given a strength you've just made one of your opponents stronger. So you want to try and get something for them, but then sometimes teams are they realise that you're basically giving up nothing in this trade, so they're kind of reluctant to trade for your backup tight end. So they can be difficult pieces to pass on, but Pingers pulled it off. Got rid of Darren Waller, an absolute, just a roster spot filler, and picked up their exact need, which was a QB. And I am loving myself a bit of Jacoby Brissett. I think he's going to be a solid option. Now, he's not going to go and get you 30, but I think he's going to deliver you solid scores every week. I don't think he's the type of QB that would have a disaster and kind of get a 5 or a 6 or an 8. I think he's always going to get 10, and I think 10's his absolute floor. He's going to get 12s, 13s, 15s, 19s, maybe the odd low 20. So I think very good trade for the Pingers. They're certainly a stronger squad moving forward with Brady, Brissett. Le'Veon's got had a difficult matchup against Dallas this week, but he's looking better with Darnold back in there. I think his opportunities are going to increase. Sony, yeah, they're all pretty much throughout the squad. They're all just. It was a nice pickup getting Jared Cook in for this 1 weeker fill while Waller had gone and Ingram's on a bye. He did pretty well, 11 points. So yeah, good scoring from the Pingers. I think they're an okay squad. Do I think they're going to go and win the LFC? No, I don't think I just don't think they're strong enough. But this was a nice week for them. It's a tricky one. I don't buy into Bell and DJ as kind of top guys. I think they're, it's 3 years past their peaks. I just don't see them really driving this team. Obviously, Michael Thomas is going to get a nice uptick in production when Breeze comes back. He's still got some remnants of the Pat stack in there with Michelle and Brady, but yeah, we're just not seeing what we were expecting from that Pats offense. So yeah, let's have a look who they've got on the old schedule next week. I never have the right tabs open. I think they've got a bit of an easy one. Yeah, they've got Bedell's next week, so a very good opportunity for the Pingers to move to 5-2. But they were the guy who lost to Kittle this season, so they do have a bit of a penchant for slipping on the old banana skin. Hope that doesn't happen again. Number 5 in our list, it's Mr. Middle of the Road, it's the Duds, and even I'm calling them the Duds, the Dubs and Tuds, who's only gone and picked up a nice 3 straight dubs, thank you very much. Easy one for them this week, 126-94 over Bedell's. Didn't need to do anything too special, and they didn't. So they haven't been doing much special this year. And actually, I think the only decent score they did get was in one of their losses. I think they got 152 or 154 in their loss to King John Fun. So obviously there's been a bit of a criticism around the league of this side, saying they're in a false position, that they're lucky to have the record they have. And I'm not sure I really buy that, because you look at the total score, and yes, it's not far off that of Chris Delaney, but you look at Delaney's scores, and they've all come over the last 3 weeks. So it's all about consistency, really. And this team, Dubs and Tuds, have just got a nice floor. They haven't scored anything below 100, which means they're not giving away W's to other sides. They're always scoring that good amount, and that's led by people like Dalvin and Alvin this week. Dalvin 12 points, Alvin 10. So that is pretty much the lowest those two go, and it opens you up for more scores when they pop. So I think we've seen this team's floor. They've got a nice floor along 100 above the 100 points barrier, but I don't think we've seen them really hit their heights yet. They had an opportunity this week because it was some of the lesser names on the squad that started firing. Kyler Murray comes up with a big 28. He is starting to get some nice scores together, and for the first time this year we started to see a little bit of a flash from this team's receiving corps. Now, what am I talking about? Well, Michael Gallup got a 20 plus last week. Curtis Samuel gets a 21 this week. And also their recent waiver accusation of Robbie Anderson scored 21 on the bench. So that's 3 20s in the past 2 weeks. So I just think they might be starting to find a half option or two at this position. And if they can get a half option or two at this position, I think they've got a lot of room to grow. Because as I said, like, you look at this week, you say, yeah, Kelsey, 7 points. Again, that's his absolute floor. There's a lot of room he can move into there. So you've kind of got Cook, Dalvin, Alvin and Kelsey. We know they can score more. Wentz and Murray are chundering along quite nicely, and we're starting to see something from the receivers. So I think this team is looking pretty good, actually. The more I read it and compare it to other rosters, I think they're one of the stronger rosters on paper. But yeah, the scoring hasn't reflected it so far, but they pick up W's by being very, very consistent. They haven't had a single score this season that's been in the bottom three for a week, in the bottom three of the week. Only one other side can boast such a record, and that is top of the table, Kim Jong-un. So it's all about consistency for these boys. Still can't get a trade going. What is going on, lads? I'm giving out those nice trades, Bedell's and Toy Boys. Rejected a couple of beauties this week, so that was disappointing, but we keep on going. We keep on going. Right, down to number 5 in our rankings. Number 6. Number 6 in the rankings is Dinner at the Dorsier. Dinner at Dorsier Solutions Limited. They can count themselves pretty unfortunate. Very sorry, James. You're probably spitting feathers at being sick in the rankings here. But it was a very impressive win. 166, Big Dick score of the week. Beating the Slingers in what was an important matchup for them. They couldn't take the L here against the Slingers, or resurgent Slingers. The Slingers will count themselves slightly unfortunate to pick up an L with 1-3-2. They were in the top half in terms of scoring. But we're focusing on James for now. And yeah, Big Dick score, Big Dick win. So, why am I moving him up any further? Well, I just can't. It's just so tight in there. I don't want to chuck the punts all the way down after they took the L this week, after me ramming them up to top, and then everyone else above him, other than number 7 on the list still to come, picked up a W. So is he leapfrogging any of those sides? I mean, yeah, you could argue he's above Duds and Tuds, but I'm just not feeling it. I'm just not feeling it historically, and it's always back to that. That is why. Yeah, on the balance of the season, sure, should be in the top 5, but historically just hasn't been in the top 5 very often. So he's always going to miss out when things get tight. Anyway, he's Big Dick week. First Cousins starting to turn up big after I said he was droppable. He's had a couple of beautiful get-right matchups against shocking secondaries, but he has delivered big scores in both of them, which is all you can ask. Kurt Kurtz, 27 points. Lamar Jackson turns up with another big one. He is a big boom or bust guy. Dorsier goes as he goes. He was a boom this week, 30 points. Zeke Elliott starting to show something. Breaks into the 20s, 23 points. Nick Chubb is just chundering. What a pickup he was. Big draft bargain. I think he probably would have gone in the 3rd round, and he's just been an excellent option through the first 6 weeks and will continue to be for at least another 2. But this is where there is a big concern for Dorsier, is he might be his number 1 option, or well, I guess Zeke is his number 1 option, but his number 1 RB scorer so far could be taking a hit in production when Kareem Hunt comes back. Is he gonna, I mean, obviously Hunt's not just gonna, walk into the starting role, absolutely not, but he's gonna steal some touches for sure, because so far it's just been Chubb, and more Chubb. But Hunt, Hunt might start taking some Chubb away very shortly. Zach Ertz, and you could say this for a couple of the big name tight ends, Kelsey and Kittle too. But Zach Ertz, out of the 3 of them, has been the biggest disappointment so far. Hasn't scored over 15 points yet in a game. That is not the production you're expecting when you pick a tight end that high. You need more points than that. He's been disappointing so far. Ridley and Thielen had okay days. Tyler Boyd, he just cannot get his selection right. When he's in the team, he's terrible. When he's out on the bench, he goes off. He just can't get that selection right. But he really didn't have any options. And that's the other thing about this team, is they are a bit shallow in the old options. If you look down the bench, McCoy, 5 points. Frank Gore, Denard Robinson. After that 1 week, he went off, and obviously Dorsey picked him up. He got a bubkus. He got an absolute donut against the Texans. With Hill back now, it seems like Hardman's still getting balls. Kelsey obviously get balls. This was with Sammy Watkins out, and he's picking up a donut. I think Denard Robinson can be dropped. And yeah, and then he's got Hunt there suspended. Brandon Cooks, 4 points. Not what he was expecting when he picked up Brandon Cooks, traded for Brandon Cooks, that's for sure. Again, he's another one that's been handcuffed by Goff's, probably the one that's been most handcuffed by Goff's inaccuracy, because Goff's just can't throw the long ball this year. I don't know what's going on. The offensive line isn't as good, so maybe it's not holding up long enough for him to get the ball down there. But when he has taken shots, they've been very inaccurate. So yeah, Cooks worries me. So yeah, it's a pretty thin roster in terms of backups. So they do require those top 5 if you include Thielen, to really get the points for them. And they went and did it this week, that is for sure. Big game next week for Dorsey. He goes up against the saggy punts. Now, the punts are at 3-3. Dorsey's at 4-2. It would be an absolute huge win as we cross the halfway mark in the season for Dorsey to put themselves 2 games ahead of a playoff contender in the punts. If I see that, then I will see that Dorsey is here to play, here to get into those playoffs this year. They've got a 2-game lead over the punts, and we've already passed the halfway mark. That would be an absolute statement. I want to see it. I want to see it from James Donovan. And if I don't see it, I'll be speaking with him next week. I'm very looking forward to that interview. I can't wait to have it, but we just couldn't have it this week. See you on number 7 in the power rankings. At number 7 in our list, dropping down the rankings, is Suck for Luck. As we spoke, they lost the Bro Bowl this week at the hands of Big Brother Lewis, the Rook. And it was a poor score, 113 points. Gardner Minshew only turned up with 4 points. I've spoken about my concerns with the QBs at this position, at the QB position that this team has. Run CMC got 19, his usual garb. His kind of minimal usual garb. And Devonta Freeman turned up big for them this week, 25 points. Quite literally was the free man. Hey, Bedels, do you want this free man? No thanks. Shocking. Beckham started to get something together, didn't get a TD, so the 13 points doesn't look that impressive, but yeah, got 130 receiving yards, starting to get that rock. Cooper Kupp was another victim of Jared Goff's terrible day, but you know, maybe you can't get too concerned. Maybe this Niners D is just that legit, and the Rams will be back to. I've got better days ahead, probably, no doubt. Sam Darnold, nice comeback in his first game back from mono, 19 points. But it's looking more and more like this six, well, obviously it's always going to be 6 playoff teams, but it's looking more and more like there are 7 contenders for those 6 spots. And right now, as the stands, the man out in the cold is Lloyd Phillips and Suck for Luck. So I thought, who better to talk to this week and then brave that chilly weather and get out in the cold with Mr. number 7, Lloyd Phillips. Lots of interesting tidbits from this conversation. I really enjoyed sitting down with Lloyd, always very insightful, gives a lot of information, puts a lot of meat on those bones. So obviously opened up with a standard question of how he thought his season was going, what his hopes were for getting into the playoffs. Does he think he can make it in? Yeah, he was pretty bullish. Obviously talks a fair bit about his side, what he thought of the season so far. Quotes on the screen as usual. So yeah, he certainly thinks he's a contender, which is no surprise. But some surprising names, and when I said, wow, okay, you're going to get into that top 6, well, who's going to drop out? You'll see some of the quotes there on screen. He picked out 3 teams, so sat on the fence somewhat, didn't single out anyone, but 3 names he dropped. And as you can see there, he says he thinks it's going to be one of those 3 to drop out of the playoffs. So pretty interesting stuff. Obviously wanted to talk about the Bro Bowl, taking that big body spanking from Big Brother. You can see on screen, it's no, little brothers are no stranger to a body spanking from Big Brother. But yeah, as you can see there, it wasn't so much about the sibling rivalry for Lloyd. Wanted to get, obviously we haven't had a chance to sit down with Lewis yet. I wanted to get a bit more background from the man who knows him best, and some very interesting comments. And I thought this was probably the biggest tidbit I got from this, is that, yeah, Lewis obviously has played fantasy football before. But according to Brother here, he's not a ring bearer. Just like it seems to run in the family that the Phillips boys cannot finish their dinner, cannot put the ring on that finger. So very interesting to see Lewis out in front there, but not much of a conversion record, it seems. Spoke about this upcoming week. He's got Run CMC, he's got OBJ, he's got one more, wait for it. He's got Juju, all missing on buys, and he lost Will Dissly to injury. So I wanted to see how he's going to react to that situation. Obviously, Dissly missing is a big one. He needs to go and find a new tight end. I spoke about his QB situation, my concerns about that young stable. He had a lot of comments. He was quite defensive of his QB stable and seems like he wants to ride with those guys. And we spoke about the buys coming up and his upcoming matchup with Dubs and Tuds, which is such a big one, particularly for Lloyd. Dubs and Tuds, one of those teams at 4-2. Lloyd, one of the 2 teams. Suck for Luck, one of the 2 teams at 3-3. So, it's another one of those ones similar to how we spoke about with Dorsia and Hedgie. Can Dubs and Tuds go and put 2 games in between them and a fellow playoff contender in Suck for Luck as we pass the halfway point? Suck for Luck, just like Punts, will not want to drop into that losing record, will not want to drop below 500, particularly at the hands of a fellow playoff contender. That's really going to put them behind the 8 ball somewhat and possibly put them in a straight fight with Hedgie for that remaining spot. Big game for them this week. But as he says here, is they do have some nice matchups. That has to be said after, obviously, looking and seeing the buys, I was very happy, but I did then have a closer look at these matchups, and he has got some pearlers this week. So do agree with him on that point. That he's by no means an L a throwaway L for Lloydie this week, and he can't afford to be a throwaway L. Lots of interesting points. I lastly finished off with what he thought, who was the favourite for the season. Another 3 names he dropped here. Interestingly, one of the names he also dropped for dropping out of the playoff spots. But this team, that team he mentioned could quite well be a candidate for both scenarios. Another 3 names he's dropped there. Interesting to see. Didn't mention himself, I noticed, which was pretty interesting. Didn't see himself as one of the favourites. So keeping it humble, we like that from Lloyd. Real pleasure to sit down with Lloyd this week, and I look forward to sitting down with another owner next week. Right, down to number 8, into those 1 and 5 teams. Number 8 in our rankings is those Gunslingers. As we just spoke, they lost this week to Dorsia, 106 ticks to 132. It wasn't close. It never really looked close. Some people tried to drum up some MF drama that they still had a chance, but they just didn't. So yeah, like I said, they can count like they were the 4th best score of the week. Sometimes that's going to pick up a W. This time it didn't. But we've seen a huge step forward from this side, from weeks 1 to 3 to weeks 4 to 6. 1 to 3, last place in scoring. The next weeks they were 2nd, 1st, and 4th. Unfortunately, that run has only reaped 1 W, so they sit at 1 and 5. So it's now or never time. Improvement is great, and certainly out of the 3 teams that many say are out of it down at 1 and 5, out of those 3 1 and 5 teams, this is the only one that I give any real serious hope of getting back. But it needs to start now. They need to start picking up those W's now. And they've got Kiddle next week. So if they lose to Kiddle, then yeah, that's their season done. Likewise, Kiddle. If Kiddle loses to Slingers, that's their season done. So it's Grim Reaper time next week. It's sudden death for those 2 sides next week. Matty Ice just keeps on producing. I mean, what was the trade again? I mean, Devonta's been injured, so, you know, we'll see what he does when he gets back. But at the moment, God, that was such a good trade for the Slingers. Because if they'd had an injured Devonta on the bench, God, then maybe they're not even 1 and 5. Maybe they're still finishing, you know, bottom of the scores every week, because Matty Ice has been producing 30 burgers for them just week in and week out. Another one this week. Stafford, not great, only 11. James Conner had a big day, 27. He's starting to get it together. Godwin, another 20. But it had some poor scores, led by the tight end. Gerald Everett, the recent pickup, only got 1.9 points. That's 2 points. And the returning Hunter Henry went and picked up 26. So he's left 25 points there on the bench from his tight end. And I don't want to be too critical, because I wasn't quite sure on the injury status of Hunter Henry. When I saw he was playing, I didn't actually know myself he was back this week. And he was playing in the later games. So maybe if he was a questionable, you might kind of feel a bit uneasy about chucking him in, as Everett might have been going a bit earlier. So yeah, don't want to be too critical of that selection. But yeah, Hunter Henry back now, scoring points. That's another good option for them. But they had some failures in there. Yeah, Aaron Jones, Sounders are really disappointed. He was after where's the guys that score 40? They seem to go missing the week after. Aaron Jones had a horrendous drop in the end zone. Started losing a lot of work to Jamal Williams, who I didn't even know was back. And yeah, he picks up a 6-pointer. A bit of a disaster there. Landry, 5 points. So yeah, not some bad scores in there that really cost him the week. So yeah, gotta start winning Slingers, or these little. They're just going to go out of the discussion. Be very short conversations we have about them. They've got to beat Kiddle next week to keep. Yeah, they've got some point scoring momentum now. Now we need to see W's. Number 9 in our list is Kiddle. Shocking score again this week, 106 points. Big opportunity to beat the Toy Boys as they turned in a poor week, but didn't take advantage of it. Still got Andy Dalton in there, 13 points. Aaron Rodgers, 18. Adrian Peterson, 14. Dalton, A-Rod, Peterson. No, this is not 2014. This is 2019. this Chargers stack is really killing him. Melvin Gordon's come back and done nothing. Keenan Allen. I told this joke in the WhatsApp group and didn't get the props it deserves. I'm gonna tell it again because it's genius. He had this 40 burger and Jesus, these receivers after they get a 40 burger start to go downhill. He's turned from Keenan Allen into Keenan get the rock no more Allen. Keenan get the rock no more. Rock more. Huh? Keenan get the rock no more. Alan. Okay then. But yeah, he has been an absolute shocker the last 3 weeks. Big Mike, he's decent recovery from his donut, 16 points. Julian Edelman has nice solid 15. Delaney Walker, another 2014 star. DJ Chark sits there on the bench for another week. This week it was the right call to have him sat there on the bench. He only scored 5 points, but he just had such value. He was just such a hot name that if you're not going to chuck him in, trade him. There were offers there, good offers. You had the opportunity to trade him while his value was high. You're not using him. Got to shore up some of those other areas of your squad. Saquon Barkley back next week. That's going to help them. And yeah, they've got to win next week against the Slingers. But like they can pick up another win for sure. But is there any signs of that this team can come back from a 1-5? No, I just don't see it. It's another season out in the wilderness for Put the Kittle on. Down at the bottom of our rankings is the Rook, Roger Bedell's. Took the L this week at the hands of the Dubs and Tuds. And he really just gave it to them in the end. 94 points. Oh, what a disaster. A score. Once again, dropping back to those sub 100s where you're just not going to get anything done. And obviously, you did this big trade this week, which goes two ways. Let's start with the positives first. Let's be a bit of a positive Peter. You look at it on paper, and as I said, I do like Hedges' side because he's picked up the best piece. But for a team that can't score any points, having one good piece isn't good. What you want to try and do is turn one good piece into two good pieces. And that's what he's tried to do now. Philip Lindsay is heavily underrated across the league. The fact that he's now on his fourth team, people continue to underrate this guy. Can he match Carson's production over the rest of the year? Absolutely he could. You cannot write this guy out. He's just getting more rock all the time. The Broncos offense is running through him. 14 points this week. Not insane scoring, but another solid score for him. So I do like that pickup. He could match Carson's production. And then on the other side, he's got rid of Marquise Brown, who was like a rook, who exploded in a couple of weeks and was a hot name, but really isn't going to get you week on week production. And he's replaced him with another guy who is, a bit of explosion and go down in Will Fuller. But Will Fuller's, his explosions will be bigger and his down weeks will be bigger. And he could have had another explosion this week. 3 drops in the end zone. He had such a nice matchup. He could have won him this week if he caught a hold of a few more balls. Just because they were long throws as well, just 2 of those, and he could have had it really this week. But I do like him as an option. I think he's for sure an upgrade over Hollywood Brown. So I think he's done what he needed to do. He's got rid of a top piece, but replaced him with 2 that could the sum of them could be much better than Carson, and that's what he needs. He's low on scoring. He needs a lot of pieces. So get rid of one, get in two. I do like, and I like a guy that's going out there, who's doing something. He realises down at the bottom, he realises his team isn't working, and he's willing to try things, willing to change things. But that can also go the other way, and you look at the total sum of the changes, and it could have cost him this week. Like I said, he got rid of Chris Carson, who scored 23 points, had a nice first week over at the punts. And there was a bit of a fanfare around this game. A few of the other owners got involved, tried to build up a bit of hype ahead of this one. Bedell's fanboys were coming out all over the woodwork. All out of the woodwork. All the Bedell's fanboys would come in, trying to build up a bit of hype that he was going to cause a big upset this week over Dubs and Tuds. And I think the pressure got to the Rook somewhat, because he started to overthink. He started to fiddle. Every time I was looking, it was a new lineup. Jordan Howard was out and in and out and in. Chris Thompson, it felt like he was maybe a hot tip from the Pingers. Don't worry, just a bit of conjecture here, but I feel like that might have been an under-the-table tip from the Pingers. It didn't exactly work out, but anyway. Alshon Jeffrey was in the team, then out the team, then in the team, then out the team. In the end, he scored 18 points on the bench. He was picking up Dede Westbrook and putting him in the team, then putting him on the bench, then dropping Dede Westbrook. Preston Williams appeared at the 11th hour and was thrown into the starting lineup. He was tinkering, and it turned out to be a bit of a disaster in the end. All the tinkering. He started Jordan Howard 4 points. That was always a bad start against the Minnesota D. He started this Preston Williams kid. You start Dolphins. Why are you starting Dolphins? He dropped Jeffrey in there. So yeah, when you drop in Alshon and you chuck in Preston Williams, you are just overthinking things a bit. And yeah, it cost him a few points. Did the total sum of his decisions cost him the win? No, because scoring throughout the team was pretty shocking. He didn't have anyone over 15 in the starting lineup. Didn't have anyone over 20 on the roster. Garoppolo 12, Phillip Rivers 14. Kittle 14, yeah, and that hot pick, CT25 from the Pingers, scored only 3 points. So maybe don't listen to Joe when he hands you a hot tip in the future.